Yeah, so basically, I just wanted to bring you here to discuss, first of all, some of your material. I told you how I found out about you through someone I used to record with. I thought that would be a good place to start in terms of looking for talent. I won't say local talent because I've referred I've seen a song where you've actually said I don't want to be referred to as local talent. So you can see that you have bigger goals. But what was interesting for me was when I was listening to your music, it felt a lot deeper than just music. It seemed like you were telling a lot of stories. You've got songs like Soul Searching, Big Dreamer. So I thought you were kind of telling your life through your music as opposed to kind of following the trends with everyone else. So I wanted you to sort of take us through the process of you writing and what actually inspires you.
I mean, in general, that's sort of the reason why I got into it in the first place. I was quite young. It was like around the start of the teenage years, and I felt like it was a good way to sort of just blow off some steam, if that makes sense. And one of my biggest first inspirations, like when I first started, was Eminem, and Eminem talked about that a lot in his like sort of, you know, about how like he's an angry teenager, and like just hearing that, it was like, okay, that's a good idea. That's where I got the idea from, you know. And first starting, I actually just used to write his lyrics.
Oh, for real?
On just paper, so I can like memorize them, because even for me, like when I started like properly speaking English around the same time.
How old was that roughly?
I was like around grade 9, grade 10. I was like 12 years old.
Because you're not the first rapper to say this. I've heard a few rappers say we started writing off people's lyrics.
Yeah.
Eminem's a good choice, obviously.
Exactly. And it was like I remember especially like the song was it Sing for the Moment. And I remember I was just like used to, and it was like for some reason I had a few friends that didn't know. So at some point I was like, that's me. You know, I lied to them. I was like, that's my lyrics.
Yeah.
And then they found out the next day that it wasn't. But it was just like really cool to know that you can just like, you know, portray things through these words and just recite them and see people's expression to that. And I thought that was sort of the main inspiration for it. And I feel like when I got really serious into it was around, I mean, I've been doing it for a long time, just to keep, you know, like just for the you know, for the sake of I enjoy listening to my own things, and like at the end of the day, like I know it's sort of an interesting sort of perspective, because when you think like as soon as you make a song, you think this is the hottest like ish out there, and then like, you know, after a while you're like, oh, you make better, and you're like, this is the past stuff is just past. So you can never tell how a person is listening to it. You can only know what your experience is, and that's for me is a very interesting thing, because whenever someone hits me up and they're like, hey, like I listened to this particular song and it's really dope, I go back and I listen to it again.
From a different perspective?
Like as if and I try to pretend like I'm this person and I just heard it for the first time.
Yeah.
And every time you hear, like, you pick up on certain things that you didn't pick up when you're listening as Mars, you know, or when you're listening as whoever. So it's very interesting. Even if you're like, you get to a point where you've heard it so much that you're like sick of it at this point and you want to just take a break of it. As soon as someone tells you like, this is really sick, you're like, what, you know, you want to go back and what is it that they're hearing in it? And it's just very interesting. So that's mainly the sort of like, I enjoyed listening to my own music at first. And then when I was graduating from university, it was like my senior year. And obviously that's such a big transition. And that's when I put out my first like Deep You project. It was like my first album, and it's called Deep.
Okay.
And it was basically like if you hear, it's just basically portrays sort of the trials and tribulations of a senior transitioning into the real world, you know. Very like it was a very chill, laid back album, but there's a lot of contradictions in terms of like, you know, morals and like all the.
You're soul searching.
Yeah, basically soul searching. I think that's mainly the.
Yeah, because that seems to sort of be a reoccurring theme, the whole trying to be iconic. What actually, I was listening to one of the songs, and you mentioned trying to be an icon, and I got the feeling that you were aiming for something bigger than perhaps where you are. But I was interested to find out whether that's related to music or is that life in general.
I think it's both. I really think that you know, there's, I don't know how to say this without sounding a little, you know, braggadocious, but it's just like I feel like, you know, I have people that I know and just people that you meet in life that are just like, you know, they just do the normal thing.
Yeah.
That they're like, you know, that everyone does. I don't know, if like your average Joe kind of thing. And I feel like I can't do that as just a person. You know, I have my music, and then I also like I do graphical design and sort of other things. And just in general, like I feel like I'm quite ambitious, and I'm very like I said this thing where it's like, is it ambition or greed? Because there's like a very fine line between ambition and greed. You know, when is it ambition, when is it greed? And it's just that you always want more of just whatever, like of life. You know, you just want to get to a point where like.
But I think when he reflects on when it comes down to you being who you want to be, I don't think you can ever be greedy. True. I don't think there's ever a limit.
True.
Because then, do you think we'd be where we are now? I mean,
true.
People had to push the boundaries, and sometimes you have to be maybe selfish, is what you can say, because you kind of have to neglect other things.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I think it's worth it personally, especially if the desire's there.
True. I feel like that, especially on this point, it's interesting because like. They tell you that, you know, happiness is with like when you're content, you're happy. But I feel like then if you're ambitious, does that mean you're not happy?
You're never content.
You're never content. If you're ambitious, you're never content. But I think it's definitely what keeps you pushing. And I feel like I've met other rappers out here, and like a lot of them they're really good, but they're looking out like outwards, and they're looking at like, you know, the West, and they're looking at the States and Canada, and that's what they're like, we're not appreciated out here. Okay. We want to go.
They want to be heard over there.
They want to be, obviously, that's where the market is, and that's where like the money is. And I understand that completely, and that's something that I also share with them. But at the same time, I feel like, and I've had this discussion with a few of my, like a few colleagues as well, that like who also rap, and they seem to like not, like for me, I want the scene here in Doha, like in the city where I grew up. I wanted to actually become something, and I always bring up like Mac Miller or Wiz Khalifa as an example, because how did we hear of Mac Miller? It was this guy out of Pittsburgh. He got a little buzz in Pittsburgh at first, and that's what put him up on the scene. Like when you hear that this guy has his city on like behind his back, it's much bigger when you're like, oh, he's just this guy out of that city. But when no one in your city knows you, it makes you a little weaker.
Is that kind of the approach you wanted to take with Doha?
That's what I was hoping would happen. Yeah, like I've always wanted to sort of like take over in a sense like Doha, and then expand to, you know, like Dubai and the like the Gulf, and then the Arab world, and eventually like be the first out of the Middle East, because although it is quite immature as a scene,
correct,
you have it's a double-edged sword, sort of. You have the whole like, you can spin it in a way that you're the first.
You can be at the forefront.
Exactly. You have like, you're the first out of the scene, and there are a few artists that are like coming up out of here, and there are a few Arab artists that are there, but mostly born and raised there, but they're just Arab. So I feel like there's a bit of penetration from like the Middle East side, but I think it could be a lot bigger.
Life lessons, gotta tell you that it's too impressive. I done grew like 100 years, I'm not that kid from '07. Mama cried 1,000 tears, but who's really keeping records? Who's really with the shits? Who's really in the section? Who's talk about being friends, and who's with me through thick and thin? Who's really with the business? Who's just trying to make a living? Who knows that I never listen and still forgive me when I'm caught slipping? Every song that we never sung back then, when I was way too young. I was young. Yeah. All I really needed was a little bit of time. All I really needed was a little bit of time. I was young. All I really needed was a little bit of time.
Normally conscious rappers are a bit boring. You just have to, it's literally about the bars, but musicality is not really there.
Yeah.
You've kind of mixed it together, which I found very exciting, because you have a sound that I honestly feel like I could hear anywhere, on the radio, whatever. I mean, I have my Fridays and my Saturdays. Yeah, I don't really get to listen to music any other times. Friday, Saturday morning, last couple weeks, I've been playing your music.
Wow.
I've been playing Big Dreamer, Generation, Soul Searching, and they've been on repeat.
Appreciate that.
So I know for a fact you could, but it's the market you're in, which is the complexity of
For sure, and that's what I'm saying. Like the like the slice of like the audience that like you're looking at people in the Gulf area, or at least in Doha, who are English speakers who like hip hop. You see what I mean? Like if I don't speak English, this doesn't penetrate to me. And if I don't like hip hop, although like we try to make the music very versatile to the point that so that we can get the concept out there and we can get the message to the people in very different forms. And I feel like it's good that you touched on that, because that's one thing that I really like try to tackle.
Yeah.
Which is basically like, you have like those, you know, they call them real underground rappers who are like Immortal Technique.
Exactly, yeah.
Well, you know, what they're saying is amazing. I can't picture myself listening to that.
Exactly.
Especially with everything that's going on and everyone's just stressed at work. You want to, like when you listen to music, you want to unwind, you know, whether it's you're driving or in the gym, etc. So the music has to be nice. At the end of the day, the music is entertainment. It's just something to you know, get your mind off things. So if it doesn't sound good, why would I listen to it? I feel like that's as simple as that.
Yeah.
So after my first album, which was very, very old school, very laid back, I was just doing my thing kind of thing. I wasn't thinking about audience or anything like that. And then after I put it out, we got a few like performances and mainly like the performances there is mainly at nightclubs. You know, that's where the most of like the slice of my audience is.
Okay.
And then we went there and we tried to, like, we had a couple songs that were performable, if that makes sense. It just wasn't the club vibe. It couldn't, couldn't work. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
So that was the first time reality hit. You're like, oh, okay, like this is music that I really enjoy making and I really enjoy listening to, and I know you can listen to anywhere else, but for this particular scene,
it's hard.
For this particular spot, it doesn't work. So you need to adapt to that, and that's when me and a friend of mine, we put together a whole album that you can perform.
Which one is it?
6 songs. It's called The Leaf Banger.
Actually, yeah. Now that you're saying that, it makes complete sense.
You see how like, it sounds like it's contradicting, but it's just all of us like just okay, take a right from here.
Yeah.
That's how we got there. And so we did with that, and we performed it, and it was it got really good reception, because obviously now you've touched in a new venue and a new type of audience, and even a lot of people that don't necessarily like know J. Cole and Kendrick Lamar and listen to hip hop, they like this kind of music. Okay. You know, they'll hear it, and although in terms of message, obviously it doesn't tell a lot of stories, you know, but it served the purpose that we needed, and I remember J. Cole said this once, which is like you gotta get the people to listen to you first, and then you can sort of push them towards whatever you want.
Which makes sense.
Which makes a lot of sense. You know, it takes away the whole like guilt of did I sell my soul? You know, am I still telling like you know, you can. There's ways around this, and it's all marketing, and it's all sort of how you maneuver through the business and through the game. And I feel like that's when you go from like, you know, amateur to professional. I feel like this little gap is like you realizing that there is a lot more to it. Yeah. And you just being able to sort of grasp the whole thing of it and then maneuver accordingly.
She messing with the best, so she ain't messing with the rest. I'ma rest my case. Never met a nigga that could take my place. I'm too stuck to my ways. Might just seem way ahead of my days. I'm just Mars, don't waste my space. Just a humble guy with an alter ego. Far from home, but still rep the people. Born in Rome, I might roam the land and fly through the sand like a desert eagle. I need some peace of mind. Learn a lesson, I'm a bit obsessive. I can't give you a peace of mind. Coming off a little greedy, never needy. I'm simply stingy, cause I don't give a shit. Nah. And I am not impressed. Nope. My life's a fucking test. Yeah. If you're taking shots, then invest in a fucking vest. Lost you, that became a mess. Lost me, I've been on a quest. Putting this together, I'ma last forever, I'm blessed. But as of late, I've been trying to find myself.
Times as you listen to it, did he download it and delete it? Is it still there? You know.
Exactly. No, that's a very good point.
But yeah, the thing that you were talking about was obviously based on the concepts that we were just discussing earlier in the different songs. It's gonna make it a lot easier for you to understand the concept of the album, which is Out of Bounds. And as I mentioned, Out of Bounds is basically, you know, not having a home here, not belonging here. Yeah. Or back home in Egypt where I am from, and it just gives this whole question is like, where do I really belong? Where do I rep? What's my hometown, etc. And while it's like each song itself would have a different concept, like you have Generations, which talks about like just the constant clash between me and my family, and just how we see things a bit different. And although they gave us the best they've got, they still see the worst in us, kind of thing, you know. So but at the same time, inside the song, you'll see it's just somehow themed around like the fact that we don't belong here. Like, you know, there's a part where I say like we come from a whole other place, and it's just hard to see the division, etc. So it ties around it. You know, even Metaphor has that. Young especially talks about that. And then so like that's the sort of the theme. Like I'll pick different aspects, but all of it is just based around the Out of Bounds. And I really think. Because I really like those like concept albums. Like I'm a sucker for like Good Kid, Mad City. These albums that have a story to tell.
I can see that you are somewhat influenced by Kendrick.
I really like Kendrick. It's Kendrick Lamar for sure. But just those story albums, and I really wanted to, like with Veep, the one I put out earlier, I really wanted to do that, and I wanted to do skits, and it took me 2 years to put out Veep.
Okay.
There was 8 more songs.
Really? So you had to kind of
I had to cut it down because it just took too long. I didn't have the studio time. Like for me, I had to go to like this wretched studio for a while. The guy was like busy, and it was just a mess. It took 2 whole years to like, so at some point, the first song I recorded wasn't even relevant to me anymore. I'm like, man, I've grown. It's 2 years. So I just needed to like cut it down, put it out. And but I think eventually my goal is to I want to make a Good Kid, Mad City in terms of like just the story.
Mate,
you know,
Out of Bounds, from what I've heard so far, it's not far off going in that direction.
Appreciate it.
Do you have any idea? I mean, I don't want to put any pressure on you. But do you have any idea when it might be coming out?
Ideally, honestly,
I assume it's not all recorded.
No, not yet. Almost. Okay. I wanted it to come out 2 days ago, to be honest, but then obviously things got pushed. But it's almost done. Like I think there's a few more tracks that are going to come out, and then once that happens, hopefully before the end of this year, I'm hoping to finish that.
When it's out, wrap it up. Mate, you have to come and find ways to perform out here.
For sure.
Like that's an absolute must. You gotta get some material out. Hopefully, we can discuss that further.
For sure.
In terms of imagery. I also like your artwork. Did you do that yourself? Or?
Yeah, because I told you I'm a designer, so I try to, you know, put that as well in there.
You got a lot under your arsenal.
It's a lot.
It's good. It's just about pushing as much as you can.
For sure.
And definitely you got something that people would want to hear.
Appreciate
It's been great meeting you.
Appreciate it, man. Pleasure.
You can never box me, yo, put me in a category. I made my story from nothing at all. Hoping these lanes last like Tories. I came with a duffel bag, a rapper singer, designer artist, here to take it beyond the fathers. I got a fever, I had to catch a habit. My eyes are on the target, got my own apartment. And you would never approve of this. There's quite a difference between us. You settle down to make a living, and so it seems I pedal through. I wanna get it like literally chase a dream. You might just never agree. You gave me the best you got. You still see the worst in me. So we been clashing for generations. Generation, 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 generation. So we've been crashing for generations.